Why do some relationships continue to just, man, have like a glue that keeps them together, while at times others can disintegrate? Aside from there being times where God calls us to different things, I think part of it, right? Part of the answer to that question is, what do we base our relationships on? In other words, like, what's the center? What's the glue? Like, what is the core that makes a relationship a relationship? I think one of the powerful things we're seeing in our study of Philippians 1 is the gospel is the glue that is holding people who in any other context of life would probably never choose to hang out together. But now they love each other. There is so much joy and there is so much gratitude as they are tied to a common mission. So we're diving back in. Philippians 1, 3 through 5. Here's how it reads. I thank my God every time I remember you. In all my prayers for all of you, I always pray with joy because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now. Now, yesterday we looked at the first three converts in the church of Philippi, right? A rich Asian woman, a Greek slave girl who was being exploited, and then a blue-collar jailer. And like, that's your church. That's how it starts. But the gospel has brought these people together. Now, therefore, right, if the gospel has brought them together, and that's the only thing that's binding them together, that means it stands to reason that when the gospel is usurped in our lives and it takes a back seat to something else, the natural, inevitable result will be that the relationships will begin to suffer. Right? If the main thing that is binding us together with others is the gospel, and if that's the glue, when the gospel begins to go onto the periphery in our lives, it begins to be secondary, what's going to happen then is nothing else is strong enough to hold our relationships intact. Right? These people in Philippi, like, they weren't bound together because they had mutual hobbies. They weren't bound together by political persuasion. They weren't bound together because they had similar careers. They were bound together by the gospel. And therefore, if the career moves ahead of the gospel, or if politics moves ahead of the gospel, or if children move ahead of the gospel, right? These things are not strong enough. They're not a type of glue that can hold relationships together. Now, as Christians, it's not that we just stop, we don't just stop believing the gospel, but often what happens is the gospel just becomes another thing in our lives amongst many others. So, with that said, it's incumbent upon us to keep the gospel the central thing, right? All of a sudden, right, when the gospel becomes the main thing, differences and preferences that would be destined to destroy a community become differences that unite a group. So I want you to think about that. I want to leave you with this question. What poses the biggest threat to you? To want to usurp the gospel as the main thing in your life?